It was a sultry spring afternoon when Sherlock Holmes and I stepped out of the first-class railway carriage at the quiet halt of Shoscombe. Overhead, a sky of pale blue hinted at showers, and the air was thick with the scent of freshly mown grass. Holmes, surveying our surroundings, adjusted the well-worn fishing rod strapped to the rack above, then turned to me. "Watson," he said, his eyes alight. "We are far from London's bustle, but this place holds secrets worth pursuing." I had no inkling then how profoundly I would come to agree. A week earlier, we had received a cryptic note from John Mason, head trainer at Shoscombe Old Place. He described odd happenings, a rift between the master, Sir Robert Norberton, and his elderly sister, Lady Beatrice Falder, nightly excursions to a ruined chapel and its crypt, and the sudden appearance of burnt bone fragments in the estate's furnace. Holmes had studied the message thoughtfully before declaring, "There's more than sport and livestock behind these mysteries, Watson. Pack your case. We leave for Shoscombe at once." A short carriage ride from the station brought us to an imposing pair of iron gates. Each bore a carved griffin, wings outstretched, symbolizing the Norberton lineage. We found John Mason waiting. He was a tall, weathered man with an air of quiet authority. After formal greetings, he led us toward the stables at the eastern flank of the mansion. "Sir Robert," Mason began, "is obsessed with a colt, Shoscombe Prince, entered for the Derby. He stakes everything on its success, yet his behavior grows ever more erratic. My lady, his sister, once shared his fervor for racing and their prized stud spaniels. Now she avoids him entirely. I fear for her well-being." Holmes raised an eyebrow. "And the crypt?" Mason sighed. "Yesterday, after Sir Robert left for London, I ventured into the old church crypt. There lay a small heap of bones, of human origin, fresh yet partially charred. I thought better than to disturb them, but they were inevitable proof that someone had been there within the week. Then this morning, Harvey, our furnace man, found a bone fragment among the cinders. He drew from his pocket a charred piece of bone. Holmes studied it with his usual intensity. "Not your typical animal remnant," I noted, and he nodded. "We shall need to split our inquiry. One thread for Lady Beatrice's estrangement, another for Sir Robert's nocturnal visits and the crypt's remains. Come, Watson. We dine early and begin fishing at dawn. There is no better way to coax local gossip out of a tavern keeper." That evening we found ourselves at the Green Dragon, a low-slung alehouse of timber and white plaster. The landlord, Josiah Barnes, was a lively chap with a jolly red face. Holmes bought the first round of ale, then remarked, "Mr. Barnes, have you noticed anything peculiar amongst your respectable patrons of late?" The innkeeper leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Begging your pardon, sir, but I once served a spaniel as fine as any in England. That dog belonged to my late mistress, Lady Beatrice Falder." Holmes's eyes gleamed. "Lady Beatrice Falder? Her family arms are on the chapel gates of Shoscombe Park." "Exactly so, sir. That dog vanished a week back, just when the lady stopped coming to the stables. Her carriage still meanders the drive, but only her maid and an elderly invalid sit within." "And Sir Robert?" Holmes inquired. "He's in London, sir, to judge by the taste of news. But he's expected home any night." Holmes and I exchanged glances. "Thank you, Mr. Barnes," Holmes said. "Your observations may prove pivotal." Next dawn found us at the park gates again. Holmes crouched behind a holly bush, the spaniel, now tethered by Barnes, restless at his side. I strolled to the roadway, prepared to stop the carriage and glean information. Sure enough, a yellow barouche approached at a walk. Inside sat a gaunt, shrouded figure stiff in shawls, beside a bold young woman with flaxen hair and brazen eyes. I raised my cane in a courteous signal, and the coachman reined in the horses. "Pardon, sir, is Sir Robert Norberton at home?" I inquired. As the reply faltered on the coachman's lips, Holmes released the tense spaniel. With a joyful bark, it leapt forward, only to recognize a stranger. It snarled and snapped at the woman in black. A harsh male voice cried, "Drive on!" The horses galloped away, leaving Holmes and me in the dust. Holmes studied the muddy tracks. He thought it was his sister's pet. Her voice must have sounded like a man's. We gain a clue to our two lines. The invalid's identity is questionable, and her maid or companion conceals her presence. Our fishing proved lackluster, so that evening we resumed Mason's guidance to the ancient chapel. Night had fallen, and a thin crescent moon hung above ragged clouds. Mason led us through tall grass until the chapel's broken porch loomed ahead. He struck a match to reveal a stone stair descending into damp darkness. Holmes lit his lantern, casting a narrow beam over burial coffins and crumbling masonry. "Show us the bones," Holmes commanded. Mason led us to an empty corner of the crypt. Holmes chuckled. "They have been moved, likely burned, as the furnace fragment suggested." He guided me along rows of lead and stone coffins, inspecting inscriptions from Saxon times to the Falder line. At last, he paused before a leaden coffin sealed by only a pair of simple clamps. Holmes pried the lid with a jemmy. Inside lay a woman's body, wrapped in white cloth, her pale face fixed in death's stillness. A lantern beam fell on us as someone descended the stairs. A towering man with a stable lantern confronted us. "Who are you, and what is this?" he bellowed. Holmes stepped forward. "I am Sherlock Holmes, here to uphold the law." The man's eyes widened. "By God, Mr. Holmes, it's all right. I can explain. Come with me." A quarter hour later, we sat in the mansion's gunroom, rows of firearms displayed behind glass. The man who had confronted us was none other than Sir Robert Norberton, his massive frame composed but stern. Beside him stood Mrs. Norlet and her timid husband, each bewildered. Sir Robert began, "I will speak plainly. My sister, Lady Beatrice, passed away a week ago. My debts are vast. My estate stands to be seized if her life interest ends. I could not see my stables and horses lost. So I engaged my sister's maid's husband, an actor, to impersonate her in public carriage drives, while the real body lay in the crypt." Holmes's gaze remained fixed. "We placed her body in the coffin of Sir Dennis Falder of the 18th century and burned the ancient bones in the furnace, hence the fragments you found. I make no apology. It was a desperate measure to save my livelihood." Holmes leaned back. "The moral question is for others. My duty is plain. The matter must go to the coroner and the police." Sir Robert nodded. "I accept your terms, Mr. Holmes." Yielded a comfortable fortune that paid off his creditors in full. The impostor's ruse unraveled at the inquest, where the coroner's jury, mindful of the charitable intentions and the delayed registration, returned a verdict of death by natural causes, though they censured Sir Robert's concealment. Lady Beatrice's remains were interred properly, and order returned to Shoscombe Park. Sir Robert, chastened by his ordeal, rebuilt his fortunes honestly, and lived out his days in respected peace. John Mason remained trainer, and the Falder Spaniels, once lost, became a symbol of triumph over tragedy. As Holmes and I boarded the train back to London, he sighed with satisfaction. "We have seen many strange cases, Watson, but few that blend desperation, loyalty, and subterfuge so poignantly." I glanced at the rolling countryside. Indeed, Holmes, life at Shoscombe Old Place was more than a racing gamble. It was a testament to familial bonds tested by fortune's whims. Holmes smiled. "And the game is always afoot, dear Watson, so long as human hearts beat with hope and fear alike."